There are lots of definitions of the term form in the regular dictionary, and in the art world it's no different. We like to throw this term about quite loosely. The one I want you to cling to, though, is the three-dimensional form in space. Today I'm going to try and unpack the term form for you, and we're going to look at its different uses across the art world, but the one that of course concerns us the most is the illusion of form. So not actual form, but the painted form. Throughout different historical periods of painting, artists and drawing of course have represented form in a lot of different ways. Some in a realistic way, some have used colour to show form, and others have worked solely with tone. Of course, the play of light around an object will also give it form and show someone where it is in space. The image that sums it up best for me is called The Treachery of Images, and it's by René Magritte. And here in French it says, "This is not a pipe." And it's not a pipe, it's a painting of a pipe. When we talk about an art form, we're talking about anything that humans can do to the peak of ability. So literature, dance, martial arts, cooking, gardening, these can all be art forms. But we're more concerned here with the forms of art making. Now, I remember this best by thinking of the units that are available for study in most tertiary art departments. And we're going to kick off with the 2D department. So in the 2D department, you'll find your painters and your drawers, textiles, which can be 2D or 3D really. The printmakers are very, very numerous. There's so many different ways to make prints, so lithographs and things like that. Digital art's most commonly placed in these days with the printmaking department. And then of course there's sculpture in its various forms. Sculpture can be formed in basically three ways. So your sculpture department is generally set up in three sort of sections. One for what we call found object, which is where a lot of clutter gets stored. And then you have an area to work with ceramics, where things need to be relatively clean. And you'll have, your firing and that sort of thing. These are constructive forms of sculpture. And then finally you have the reductive forms of sculpture, which is going to be a shopload of tools mostly, and that's where people craft forms by reducing materials, whether it's marble or wood or whatever it is. Academically speaking, form can also be talked about in terms of form versus content. This form is used when we're discussing art. It's the kind of form you talk about when you write an essay. So here we have a woodcut, which is the form. So the art form, or the art was created by making a woodcut. And the content of this woodcut is a view of Mount Fuji. It's actually one of 36 views of Mount Fuji that Hokusai did. So moving on, we've got a ceramic work. It's a vase, and it's by Grayson Perry, who's a British artist. And Grayson has got the form of a vase, and the content is actually a commentary on Brexit. Here is Grayson Perry with one of his many tapestries. This one's a big close-up of one of his tapestries. So here we would say that the form of the artwork is a tapestry. We might talk about the shapes of the forms in that tapestry as well, but the content here is actually a social commentary on the celebrity culture. Going way back in time, this is a really early woodcut from Holbein, and it's a woodcut print, and it is of, well, I think it's called the Death and the Abbot. So the shapes of forms I mentioned, the two main shapes are your organic or naturally occurring type of shapes. These are things that occur in nature, so waves, leaves, human body part shapes, anything that's kind of looks like it could grow. And then of course you have your geometric forms, which are more forms that are human, have had human intervention, so quite often geometric, man-made. There are a few obviously geometric shapes in nature, but not so much. And there are a lot of works, particularly in the Cubist era and with sculpture, that the works almost have an organic feel and yet they're a geometric shape, or they're somewhere in between. Sculptural form we'll look at just briefly. These things are either thought to be in the round or in relief. So in the round is a sculpture that you can get up and quite often, you know, security permitting, literally walk all the way around. So this work by Miro, you can walk all the way around. The same with this one by Brancusi. Then we go to the base relief, which is a very low relief. So here we have an organic form in base relief, and we have organic forms. This is unusual because it's a man-made object, so it's a combo of some organic forms over the top of a geometric shape. Haute relief is probably the least popular form because it's not very stable. You can see this guy's nose is being knocked off. So haute relief or high relief is where something sticks out considerably. And the one that is thought to be the oldest form of sculpture is sunken relief. And so some Aboriginal sculptures or carvings and Egyptian ones are in sunken relief. And then finally we have the old sigh of relief, which is what you get when I finish talking about all these different kinds of relief. The last two major considerations for a form is it open or closed? What does that mean? Okay, so a closed form quite often is something that you can view in the round. So like the thinker, the bowler, oh no, he's actually called the discus thrower, the toddler. These are all fantastic forms that are in the round, but they're closed. It's a solid thing. Open is a little bit more complicated because it doesn't necessarily just have to be open. It also refers to sculptures that require interaction from the audience. So it needs the audience to actually function properly in its environment. So by looking through it or around it or beyond it, or using it as a comparison to other things. Here are a few gorgeous open sculptures by Barbara Hepworth, and I have a couple here as well, I think, by and back to creating the illusion of form. So any of the elements of art and design that we've been talking about can be used in a way to create form. So you can do it with value, you can do it with texture, you can do it with contour, with line, you can do it with colour, and artists have used it to create form in many different ways. Sometimes they've actually created literal form and collaged. So have a look at your work next time and consider how you want to make your form appear. Form can be used not just in realistic work but also in abstract work. It's a very powerful tool that sets the audience in a firm position in relation to what you're showing them. So even if what you're showing them is a big beautiful swoop of red on a canvas and it's totally abstract, completely non-figurative, if you've given it body and form, it's going to make the person have a sense of scale, and it's going to give them something to consider when they're looking at it. So finally, being able to create the illusion of form in your work is a really powerful and useful tool. It's definitely worth considering. And that final definition I want you to come back to is a 3D object in space.